And once again, good morning, and please welcome Justin Foa, the president of IBANY.
Good morning, everyone from snowy New York City. Our Insurance Brokers Association of New York is really pleased to be putting on this holiday event. Normally this would be an in-person event, but thankfully we're doing it virtually, not only to be safe, but also because it's so snowy outside, it probably would be really hard to meet in person. So a little bit of luck here with our format. We're really excited about our program. I really first want to thank our sponsors, without whom this would just not be possible. Our 2020 education sponsor, the Excess Lines Association of New York. Thank you so much for your help in putting on these programs throughout the year. Also, our gold sponsors for today are Arthur J. Gallagher, PL Risk Advisors, RT Specialty, and Seneca Insurance. So those people, thank you very much for helping us out and helping us put these on. Let's also talk a little bit about IBANY and the programs that we've had during this year. I'm really proud of the way we've pivoted and been able to put out some really good content. As you see on your screen, some of the webinars that we've done. I'm really proud that the board has adopted a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, and that we've been committed to that statement and tried to find educational program that incorporates the values of that statement. So thank you to everybody, especially our program committee, for making it happen in 2020. We are also really pleased to say that we have over 500 people signed up for this webinar. So making it, I think, our largest IBANY educational event ever. And again, thank you, because we would not be able to fit this many people into our live venue. So again, a little bit of luck, which we'll take anytime we can get in 2020. Let's move now to the meat of it. I was very lucky to be asked to have a fireside chat with Evan Greenberg. Due to the weather, we decided to pre-record it just to make sure that all the connectivity and everything worked out really well. So on Tuesday, Evan and I sat down virtually to have a chat. I think we touched on some important topics in the insurance industry, talked a little bit about CHUBB, and talked in general about the economy, both in North America and globally. So we'll start that video now. Please be advised, Holly mentioned it earlier, there is maybe some lag when we tested this, so you may have a lag of 10, maybe up to 20 seconds before the video actually hits your screen. If that happens, don't fret, it'll come on. So thank you. We'll do the video, and then we'll be moving on to our award presentation for the Insurance Person of the Year. So with that, here's
Evan, it's great to see you. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Insurance Brokers Association of New York. As all you know, Evan is the chairman and CEO of CHUBB and our guest for our holiday event. We can't do it in person, but having such an esteemed guest is really a treat for us. So we really look forward to hearing your thoughts on all things insurance today during our program.
Well, good morning, and it's nice to be with you, and happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe.
Yes, thank you. So let's jump right in. I think people are dying to hear some of your thoughts. The pandemic started. You did your rounds. I think talked eloquently about how the insurance industry was responding to this. We're 9 months in now. Where do you see the current industry being affected by this pandemic and the broader economy in general?
Yeah, I think, look, the pandemic has a serious impact on everybody, all of society, economically, socially. Everyone and all the ways we conduct ourselves are impacted. An obvious statement, and it's global. The insurance industry, like so many other industries, has an important role to play in society as insurance responds to the many risks and exposures that are uncovered as a result of the pandemic, from business interruption insurance to workers' comp to all forms of liability that become impacted, from employment practices liability to directors and officers to medical malpractice, travel insurance, health insurance, life insurance. The liability side of the balance sheet is impacted from many different exposures. And then as time goes on, as the economy is impacted, credit-related and trade-related exposures are impacted. And then the asset side of the balance sheet. We hold the bonds of corporations around the world, and some are out of business or are damaged. And so the insurance industry's role as an intermediator of capital in the asset side, as a long-term investor, is impacted. In my judgment, I'm where I was, and that is that this event, when you add it all up on a global basis, will cost the industry north of $100 billion. And by the way, it's a role we should be playing. That's what keeps us relevant. That's who we are. We have a service to provide society. We're an essential business. When you think of the millions of claims that are being processed and have been paid, the engineering risk activities that are taking place during the pandemic to help keep businesses safe. You think of all the natural catastrophes that have occurred in this year. It is one of the record years for natural catastrophes of all kinds, and yet the industry is performing normally. I think it's noble, and I think it's something that we should all be proud of, in spite of all the business interruption noise that is occurring from the trial bar and others. We should be proud of the role we're playing. As far as the economic impact, it's going to be with us for a while. And I think 21, we will slowly, incrementally get better as the year goes along, as we control the virus better, I hope, and as the vaccine is rolled out, which will take time. But I'm hopeful and have some confidence that in many regions of the world, including in the United States, as the year progresses, we'll begin to return to a more normal environment.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about politics and also risk. After 9/11, the government decided that they would assist the insurance industry in creating TRIA, which the argument was, look, this is really not an underwritable risk. There's too many governmental control factors that need to be put in, and so we need some public assistance. Thankfully, we've also have a robust private market, but I think certainly buttressed by the public response. In this instance, I know that CHUBB's gone to our legislators and proposed a pandemic business interruption coverage solution so that people might not be let down if this arises again. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe about some of the political hurdles and positives that you see in the proposal?
Look, in the first instance, in protecting society against a future pandemic, I don't think it's about the most important thing is the financial protection. I think it's the health-related protection that Congress and the government and the states wrestle first, so we don't have a repeat of this, and we're better prepared. And then, secondly, the financial related protection that is a companion. And what I mean by that, very simply, when this pandemic first occurred last March, the health professionals believed we were dealing with a pandemic akin to the 1918 flu. The 1918 flu had a mortality rate of 5%, and which is quite extreme. And given the exposure to loss of life, number one, and then number two, given how ill prepared we were from a healthcare infrastructure perspective to manage the overwhelming exposure to our hospitals and medical network. The only blunt instrument response with those two facts that they could turn to was shelter in place, shut down the economy. As a result, it created trillions of dollars of financial exposure and hardship. We should not, the lesson we ought to get out of this, number one, is that we should be better prepared so we don't have to shut down the entire economy again. That would include better medical knowledge and sharing of information among nations so that we'd have better intelligence about a virus occurring. We used to have that with an FDA presence in China, or a CDC presence, pardon me, in China that has been greatly curtailed. That's a mistake. We should have much better hospital preparation, PPE. We should deal with the issue of digital testing and tracing. And so, and vis-a-vis privacy laws, so that we can roll out technology in the future much more quickly. And then the whole notion of testing, the infrastructure around that, the supply chain, so we can be much better prepared than we were. In that case, the financial bill that you would pay between the private sector and the government would be much smaller than trillions of dollars, because you wouldn't have to shut the whole economy down in the future. Our proposal is pretty simple. It's to address small business and mid-sized and some large business in particular. It recognizes that the insurance industry does have a role to play. We can take pandemic risk. Many in the industry, I realize, consider that a controversial statement. But our role is not to walk away from exposures, it's to figure out how to manage them. Otherwise, we ultimately be
Good morning, folks. There is a pause right here in the video. We're waiting for it to come back on. Just remain with us and we should be fine.
and we'll see where it goes in the future. Right now, the government is preoccupied, as they should be, with the current pandemic and controlling that, and don't seem to have much bandwidth yet, though I'm sure they will in the future, to look at better preparedness about a future pandemic. And by the way, before we run off to put a solution in place, we should have the necessary perspective of time. Let the dust settle. Let's learn the lessons and allow those to speak to what should the solution look like. But I think ours will give us a seat at the table in working with those who want to work constructively on a public-private sector solution.
Evan, we've been seeing a ton more risk crop up. You talked about it yourself within policies where people didn't even think about them before, employment practices, directors and officers liability, other liabilities, and we're seeing a hardening market. There's a lot of things driving them. How do you see this hard market as different from the ones in the late 80s, that in the early 2000s and late 2000s?
Every part of the cycle has its own signature and is different because it's in the context of the environment at that time. And let's understand one thing. What drives cycles, which is an economic cycle in insurance, is no different than what drives the cycle of within any other industry. It's fundamentally about supply demand. Demand is fairly constant. That's those wanting to buy insurance. Supply is the amount of capital chasing that demand. When there's an excess amount of supply, prices typically go down because markets become overly competitive. That's true of anything. And when supply is more limited, in this case, when capital either is destroyed by bad underwriting or pulls back out of fear or out of concern for the unknown, or what they actually know, or is weary of taking risk because they took too much risk on an underpriced basis, then supply shrinks. And that's what causes what we characterize as a hard market or market correction. In this case, if I look back in the 80s, it was the environment that triggered it. Was a change of the legal environment. It was dramatic around environmental and asbestos and directors and officers liability, et cetera. There was a sea change in that. Each period has its own triggers and its own signature to it of what will throw that supply demand out of balance. And then when the pricing correction begins, it's due to how much were balance sheets damaged, what is the right price for the risk, and how hostile is the current environment. So when I look at the current that we're in, low interest rates, so-called social inflation on the liability side, underpricing of business for many years, COVID-19, like in 9/11, where a new risk emerges that we hadn't really given serious consideration to, and it raises the specter of risk. And that makes the market more cautious. You have COVID-19 and all the unknowns around that. And by the way, COVID losses for most carriers are going to emerge on their balance sheets and their income statements over a number of years. At CHUBB, we tried to address it all in one lump sum last June. So you have all those things at play right now. And it makes the cycle a little different. In the past, you didn't have the kinds of technology we have today and management information that we have today. And Sarbanes-Oxley hadn't been put in place to keep managements honest. That has a way of changing the nature and pattern of the cycle today as in the past. But you do come back to one fundamental that is true of all cycles: supply demand. And in order to ameliorate cycle, you need to get a proper risk-adjusted price for the risk, period.
Are there any, you talked about employment practices, we talked about just umbrella liability. Are there any areas out there that you don't think have hardened, or the supply hasn't shrunk, or that we haven't seen as brokers yet, icebergs that basically might be floating out there, but we don't really see the base?
Look, in most areas, in large account and E&S in particular, prices are firming to the point where I'm hopeful and optimistic that as time goes on, we will achieve a proper risk-adjusted price, which means that you're achieving an underwriting profit that gives a reasonable return on the capital you're deploying. At CHUBB, we want, depends on the risk, between a 12 and 15% return on capital. So nothing that is out of the ordinary. It's spreading into the middle market, where it ought to be, because look at the risk environment around natural catastrophe. You named a couple on the liability side, and then add social inflation, whether it's in directors and officers product or it's products liability, etc. And those, all of those exposures, it's a hostile environment, contribute to the need for pricing. And I think the industry is responding in most all areas. The one that concerns me the most, though, when I look forward, not from a pricing perspective, but from a risk perspective, is cyber. Because if I think of any kind of peril that of exposure that has the signature of a pandemic, meaning it has no geographic bound to it, and it has no time limit to it. Therefore, for practical purposes, the size of the loss is almost infinite. It is cyber. And by the way, just look at the most recent attack in the last couple of days that we've become aware of. The attack started many months ago, on both the federal government and on business, from Russian state actors. And that just puts a point on what I'm saying.
I guess they call it a computer virus for a reason, right? It's a similar type of issue. Cyber was the last probably really large new product that came out of the insurance industry. It was a little bit slow to take on the uptake. Do you see any new products out there that you are, hope can grow the way that cyber has and can really help businesses?
I think what's on my mind most at this moment is climate change and how we respond to climate change and the impacts from the warming of the planet, and imagining that from all the science and the way we understand it, the volatility we're seeing today is going to continue and even increase. And you look at all of the so-called non-modeled perils, and non-modeled is becoming a misnomer. They're becoming better modeled, or they're poorly modeled, but they're modeled, and we're starting to learn a lot more, and the science is evolving. Flood insurance. For the most part, the industry plays flood on a defensive basis. But the more we can do with spatial science capability and hydrology and the other sciences that go into understanding at a granular level flood risk, the more we can provide solutions that are both risk-taking and information benefiting in terms of working with municipalities and others on how to mitigate the exposure while we assume exposure. Because we're either going to do that or it's going to become untenable to live in many areas where people live today. And so being able to respond that way, whether it is flood, whether it is wildfire, which is just emerging as a much bigger peril, there hasn't, it's here to stay. Those are areas that we're, as a company, we're leaning into and spending more time on how to respond in solutions we can provide, both in terms of risk transfer and, as I say, in risk engineering, true product and risk engineering to help municipalities and businesses to mitigate through infrastructure and other means of construction.
Okay, great. As your distribution platform, or one of your major ones, brokers and agents have been consolidating at a almost accelerating pace. While the business model has been that a lot of these consolidated companies are still left to run on their own. There might be consensus out there that that's not going to happen forever. So the effects really haven't maybe truly been felt by some of this consolidation. What do you think the long-term impact is on the distribution network for insurance companies? You know, who's going to be the winners? Who are going to be the losers out there as we go forward?
Yeah, you know, look, consolidation is natural. I'm not afraid of it, and I understand the wisdom behind it on one hand, and let the marketplace work. I think that's just fine. On the other hand, you're not going to have a viable distribution industry if you have only 2 actors or 10 actors or 20 actors. To be viable as a distribution mechanism, industry, you need hundreds, you need thousands. And frankly, on one hand, I understand the concern with the concentration as a result of consolidation. On the other hand, the entrepreneurial nature in brokerage and agency, to me, is also alive and well. I see the spurring of new entities that are developing, whether it's organically or through the cobbling together and acquisition to offer choice. And customers want choice. And I see how technology is opening up more pathways to different forms of distribution, because how customers want to buy and how they want to experience the service of insurance. You're always going to sell to the customer the way the customer wants to buy. You're going to service the customer the way the customer wants to be serviced. That's a market-oriented economy. And in my mind, I'm not overly troubled about the consolidation I see. In the case of CHUBB, the major brokers represent 20 some odd percent of all of our business. We are widely distributed in terms of accessing customer through a variety of distribution sources: agency, smaller brokers, direct distribution through telephone, direct distribution through technology and the internet. And those can, partnering with financial institutions, partnering with digital platforms. All of that exists and is going to continue to grow. And so I think I hear the conversation around consolidation and I acknowledge the concerns, but I think it's too narrow in the way we think about it. CHUBB is an agency company. We're an agency company and we're a brokerage company. And we are committed to the independent agency system. And we're committed to supporting agents who want to support themselves and grow their business and remain independent. We are fiercely committed to supporting that.
Thank you. It's great to hear that on behalf of all brokers. We love CHUBB as a partner. Talk a little bit about where you guys are going with technology. You alluded to it, and also how your partners can invest in technology in ways that you think will help the partnership and do all the things you just talked about in terms of growing our businesses and CHUBB's distribution.
Look, here's the reality. If you look at the vulnerability of the business, there is too much cost in the system. We've said it for years and it remains. It's the percentage of cost that is the friction cost between a company's overhead, an agent and broker's overhead, and then the margins. And when you look at that, the ability to deliver the service and product to the customer in a more seamless way, and then service it in a more rapid and seamless way, we've talked about it for decades. It's almost boring. That's not the future. That's right now. That's what we're doing right now. The amount of our business that we now can transact where no human being touches it on the CHUBB side is in the billions, and it's growing by the hundreds of millions every 6 months and year. We're just increasing that capability because of straight through processing, whether it is through our systems, or the way we're using robotics, or the way we're beginning to use analytics and decision making and underwriting, and then our ability through API technology to connect to brokers and agents systems so that you, with far fewer questions, can underwrite and present a proposal to a client and close that deal in small business, and now moving up into the lower middle market, and it'll move up into the middle market over time. That day is with us. We're doing that. And then our ability to move to anytime, anywhere by moving it off of your CSR's desktop onto the mobile phone so that you can be sitting with a client and present the product and make a quote. And with only asking a few questions, that day is not in the future. That day is right now. And your ability to be knowledgeable about that, embrace that, and take the cost and the noise out of the airwaves, well, I can tell you, you want to talk about your ability to thrive and survive in the future? Well, that's what it's about. Because I'm going to sell to the customer the way they want to buy. A few are going to want to buy straight through digitally. Many or most are, in my judgment, going to want to buy insurance with the advice of someone, but they're going to want to do it in the way they buy every other product. They want it presented in a simple and digital way. Our ability to data scrape today and answer so many of the questions that we typically would ask you to ask your clients is only improving year by year. And it's accelerating. And the amount of investment we're making in that on a global scale is substantial.
Great. Thank you for that answer. Let's talk a little bit about CHUBB. Talking about hard markets, ACE was born as a capacity player, became a specialty player and a global insurer, and then with the CHUBB merger / acquisition, has broadened into a solid all things, almost to all people. The one thing that you guys don't really have is maybe the small direct to consumer at the scale of some of your competitors. Where do you see yourself going? Does that put you at a disadvantage to some of the other AXA Allianz companies out there? And where do you see your advantages against those guys?
Our consumer businesses around the world now measure, with small business together, measure about somewhere around 12 billion of revenue. Most of it, I'd say half of it, is delivered through agents and brokers on a technology-enabled basis. The balance of it is direct to consumer, principally in Asia and Latin America, and beginning to grow in the US. I don't feel at a disadvantage. In fact, in many ways, I think CHUBB is ahead of the game, and our ability to continue improving that. In small commercial, when we did in the United States, when we completed the merger of ACE and CHUBB, we began a small commercial business de novo right then. And that business has grown globally to that's from nothing, from dust. That was 5 years ago. And that business globally is now over $1 billion and growing rapidly. Half of it is in the United States. And for those of you who have experienced Marketplace, which is our front-facing technology for small commercial, and our product and the underwriting of it, we're going toe-to-toe with the best in the business now. And given our brand and given our product breadth, and our ability with technology, I'm very optimistic about the growth potential of that business, and particularly with agents in the United States as we go forward.
We have a few minutes left here to talk about geopolitics. Okay, so we've got a new administration coming in. You've got, as you said, some issues with China. Where do you hope that you see some of these trends move? What do you think we can do as a country and as an industry to move forward, given what we see in 2021 and beyond?
America is in a leadership position still today, but that leadership position is not God-given, and that position is eroding. We, in a word, have to run our own race better. And we have a rival and a competitor for that mantle of leadership that is emerging rapidly and that I would take seriously, and that is China. I don't think we ought to frame China as an enemy. I don't think we should lack confidence. China is not a juggernaut to be afraid of, but if we don't run our own race better, they will become the global leader, and we won't be. And what I mean by that is a number of things. You only lead from strength. Our country's own abilities right now are lacking in important areas. Skills training for our workforce, immigration. We have a world out there of 8 billion people we can pick from, the best and brightest, who would want to live in America and contribute to the innovation in our society and to the growth of our economy. Yet our immigration system is broken. Infrastructure, we fail to invest in infrastructure, starting with 5G technology and transportation and telecommunications that are putting us at a disadvantage. And I could go on with the list. The fiscal deficits we're running today, the reserve currency is a strength of ours. And then finally, and so we have to have fiscal control. The notion that you can run endless deficits is, to me, a nonsense notion, and it'll damage the future of our country. It crowds out our ability to invest in those things that will improve our competitive profile. And finally, our system of alliances that we built since the Second World War are a force multiplier of the strength of America, along with our values. Democratic countries don't go to war against each other. And so a more democratically oriented world that preserves the sanctity and the rights of the individual, that's part of who we are. It's through that system of alliances that we'll have a rules-based global trading system that will promote the kinds of values and freedoms that are part of America's vision of the future world, and not the future world that China would promote. Those are the things we should be concentrating on. The new administration, I think, I'm optimistic on one hand that they will return to some of these more traditional notions, but our ability to then have an agenda domestically that we can pass in what is a polarized political environment is where I'm a little less sanguine. But time, we don't have endless time as a nation, and we need to get our act together.
Great, thank you so much. On behalf of the Insurance Brokers Association of New York, that's our time. Those are some great insights, and I really appreciate you coming to our holiday event and making it special. I think you know that we are honoring one of your own in the program later today, and that is Amy Feller. Can you give her, she is being given our Insurance Person of the Year award, and I can't imagine someone more deserving. Can you say a few words to Amy just as we wrap up?
I can, and look, thank you, Justin, for taking the time and for inviting me to do this. And I absolutely have a shout out for Amy. I can think of no better choice of executive or leader for a recognition like this than Amy Feller. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, and she spent her entire career with CHUBB. You want to talk about loyalty, both in Manhattan and in Long Island. She is a New Yorker's New Yorker. And by the way, I have an eye for what a New Yorker is, because I am one as well. Amy has built a stellar career at our company since 1987. She is deeply connected, you all know this personally, with our agents and partner brokers in this region, and she is a terrific mentor and role model for CHUBB. Her level of energy, enthusiasm, professionalism, and knowledge of the business are simply outstanding. Her sense of caring and sense of loyalty and commitment are hallmarks of who she is. So thank you. Thank you for honoring her. And Amy, a huge congrats from me. Bravo. Well done.
Thank you, Evan. Really appreciate the time and the insights, and have a wonderful rest of your day. We really appreciate you joining us.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot. Everybody stay safe.
Okay, hello everybody again. Thank you for joining us during that chat. Thank you to Evan. That was really insightful and the kind of conversations that we like to have with the Insurance Brokers Association of New York, because you know, CEOs talk all the time and their speeches are canned, but to actually get to be do the fireside chat is just a special and wonderful thing. So thank you again, Evan. Now it's my sincere pleasure to turn the program over for the presentation of our Person of the Year award to Diane McNally of Siegel Select Insurance. She's a principal there. I've known her most of my career, and she is a consummate insurance professional who has been a massive contributor to our program committee over the years. And you saw what the program committee did at the beginning of this event and how amazing the job they have done in 2020. So with that, I turn it over to Diane to continue the festivities.
Well, thank you, Justin. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce Amy Feller as the 2020 Person of the Year in appreciation for her dedication and commitment to the insurance industry. Amy is a longtime friend, former colleague, and current business partner for many years. And our careers have crossed paths many times over the years. You know, first we actually crossed each other's paths in CHUBB's old Midtown East office many years ago, Amy, right? Over Grand Central Station. And then I had headed out to Long Island, and Amy joined us as the first woman branch marketing manager, really expanding and building her relationships in a very special insurance market to many of us here today. So then she continues to do great things. We started a local women's development council, an employee resource group now called Impact at CHUBB, where she serves on the board. No surprise. And one of the things I so appreciate about Amy is how passionate she is about developing and mentoring and coaching others in the insurance industry. So then she heads back to New York City. Our paths crossed again. She's the marketing manager, and I'm now the first regional for CHUBB specialty at the time. And then she doesn't surprise us again because she gets promoted and goes back to Long Island as the branch manager and continues to build relationships as she's done for many, many years. And the things that I've known best about Amy too is how she gives back to her community. So for many years, she served on various board positions with the UJA in Long Island in the metro area. She's currently on the board of Summer on the Hill. a not-for-profit for underprivileged children here in New York City. So, again, doing great things in voluntary capacity. So, Amy, with great pleasure, I want to congratulate you on this well-deserved award. I thank you for everything you do for the insurance community today and for all of us, and want to wish everyone a very happy holiday. Stay safe, and turn it over to Amy to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diane. Listening to your remarks really reinforces for me that our business is one where we're so fortunate to build enduring relationships. And I'm really happy for your success and grateful that our paths continue to intertwine. Thank you for being a great partner and friend. And a special thank you to Evan Greenberg for his kind words and his unwavering leadership, especially this year when leadership was more important than ever. I am truly humbled to be recognized as IBANY's Insurance Person of the Year, especially in a year like no other. While I wish we could all be together at the Downtown Association as in previous years, as Justin said, the fact that we're all housebound in the snow and can still attend an industry event is not something any of us would have envisioned last year. This recognition means so much coming from IBANY, an organization that's over 100 years old and represents what's so special about the New York brokerage community: enduring, committed, professional, built on deep relationships with a commitment to serving clients. When I think about the various roles that I've had at CHUBB, working with producers has always been a highlight for me. On behalf of my colleagues at CHUBB, I want to thank Justin Foa, IBANY, and the New York broker and agency community for your partnership. We do not take that partnership for granted, and we're very thankful for your support. And I'm personally thankful for all of the friendships that I have. So many of you are here. I can't see you. I wish I could, but I know you're out there. I can feel it. I also want to thank the entire CHUBB New York region team. I received this recognition on your behalf. You have all been working under unprecedented personal circumstances this year to serve our customers. And if ever there was a year where agility, empathy, and perseverance came into play, it was 2020. And each of you in every role makes such a significant contribution and perform amazingly. I am proud to be part of this dynamic team. Last, but definitely not least, thank you to my family. They're in various rooms here as I speak. Your unwavering support is truly a gift. And the fact that we're all still happy to see each other in quarantine, I think that says all that needs to be said. In closing, first, I want to show you and thank IBANY for this lovely memento of this really important occasion. I want to wish you and your families good health and happiness as you celebrate the holidays. And here's to a better year ahead for everyone. Thank you and be well.
Great, Amy. Thank you so much for those comments. And as you know, as I said before, this is the largest attended IBANY educational event we've ever had. I think Evan had a little bit to do with it, but I think you had a lot to do with it. In the New York insurance community, you are one of the rock stars and so deserving of this award. So it's a deep pleasure for everyone here involved in awarding it to you. Just a few closing, yes, let's. Just a few closing quick comments. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors again, Excess Lines Association of New York, Eleni, Dan Marr. Thank you for your support of our educational programs this year, and our sponsors today, Arthur J. Gallagher. Thank you so much. PL Risk Advisors, RT Specialty, and Seneca Insurance Company. All major help to let us put these programs on and continue to do the work that we do. Speaking of some wholesalers, our January event is going to be best practices in dealing with wholesalers. Definitely a great learning event for any retail broker. So I really look forward. Maria Treglia is going to be spearheading that for us in January. So with that, I thank everybody for joining us today, for hearing Evan, for honoring Amy, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your holiday season. Please stay safe, and we'll see you all in January with continued programming. Thank you very much.